listen, I'm not a huge fan of these music streaming platforms anymore, but you gotta have your music there to some degree because that's where all the listeners are. And if you want to get there for free, then you might want to check out Boost Collective. Some of y'all might know them as just doing playlisting, but recently they launched a free distribution service. There is a ton of shady stuff going on with some of these other distributors. It is just not good. If you get targeted for having some of these bot things, they're gonna have your back in the cases that, you know, somebody targets your song and then throws a bunch of fake streams on it. I honestly really appreciate the support. It just helps me keep this channel going. And a big thank you to you for taking a moment to listen. Let's get back to the video. So the first thing you need is some sort of vocals. You can find a lot of Brazilian acapellas on YouTube. Just do a search. The next thing you're gonna need is a bass line, which is also gonna double as a melody. Now, if you're in need of some good bass sounds, I actually just use stock plugins from FL. This one is called Flex. If you go in here and then you go under free, there's gonna be a bunch of free packs for you to download. Then they're gonna end up over here, and one of them is called Olbade Bass Utopia, and the one I'm using here is Dizzy Vox. Now, right here in the middle, we have the rest of the drums. Start by just putting in a kick and a snare. If you really want that nice upbeat tempo, you're gonna wanna use an open hat. It is gonna make a huge difference. Now, I know it doesn't sound like much, but you're gonna hear that nice in the mix. Then, of course, we have this nice little chant. Everyone's heard this. Here is another one of those key sounds that also shows up in rap beats as well, but it really works in electronic music. And then I have this little laser sound that comes in once in a while. And then right on top here, we have this Krush loop. This came with just a simple Krushclub drum kit that I found on the internet for free. Now, in terms of melodies, we only have 3 things, besides the bass, of course. First thing here is an arpeggiator that just adds texture. Then we have the main melody, which again is just an arpeggiator with layered notes. So I completely forgot to mention where I get these ARP sounds. Again, they are just completely stock FL plugins. One of my go-tos is called Sorry, I don't know, dude. You can just click on the presets here and then go to arpeggios, and then there is a ton for you to choose from. And if you want to adjust how fast these ARPs happen, you can just click on this image line word here, and then down here you can change how the arpeggiator works. So if we just turn it down, it's going to be half speed. We can make it go between 4 notes, and we can make it go down instead if we want. And you can literally do that for any sound. So if you want an ARP bass, you can just go to any of these presets and then enable the arpeggiator, and it just goes crazy, man. And then again, the other one that I use is actually just Flex. I use Flex so much, man. I have this chiptune pack here, and then throughout here, there are just random ARPs that I can use. So if we open this up, it's just 4 notes stacked on top of each other. If you layer a bunch of them, it actually runs them more like a sequence. So if I hold 1 note, right? But if I hold multiple notes, it goes between the 2, which is super cool. And then lastly, we have a very simple pad. It's just 3 notes, then I make 1 cut here to make it go up, and then repeat. Now, I actually have this extra melody that I made, but altogether it sounds too cluttered. But if we just disable this acapella, it actually sounds really cool. So if I disable the master effects here, it's actually very quiet. But before we talk about the master itself, let's talk about some of the mix. Now, when it comes to the drums, pretty much everything except the kick can just be left as is. Just drag them in, make the pattern, and then just adjust the volume accordingly. But as for the kick, you're gonna wanna make sure you sidechain a ton of stuff to it. Now, you can see it actually only sidechains to this sidechain tab here. Now, the sounds that are usually gonna come through here are gonna be your melodies and your vocals. Sidechaining makes a huge difference in how things sound. So I'm gonna play this along, and I'm gonna disable and enable the sidechain. Now you can obviously hear the kick starts distorting a ton. So what I recommend is you put the kick onto its own track, make it track number 1, and then the track next to it, just leave it completely blank minus a fruity limiter. You're gonna select the kick track, you're gonna right click on this arrow down here, and you're gonna go sidechain to this track. Now, whenever the sound gets played through here, it's gonna affect whatever plugins are on here. So to get these sounds properly connected to the sidechain, all you gotta do is right click on this arrow and click route to this track only. If you do route to this track, it's actually gonna play the sound twice. So you're just gonna repeat that step for all of the melodies. And then you can go ahead and throw on a fruity limiter. It's probably gonna look like this. Just make sure you click on the word comp down here, and then sidechain, make sure this is selected at 1. Now, if your kick does not come before all of these layers here in the mixer, this will not be number 1. I can actually go between 0 all the way up to 4. That's because we have track 1, 2, 3, and 4 available to be sidechained. So of course we want the sidechaining to only happen to the sidechain track. So we're just gonna change this to number 1. And if you watch this, you can see all of the ducking that happens every time the kick plays. Now, the only thing you're gonna need to mess with here is the threshold and the ratio. Think of the threshold like how much compression you want to happen when the kick hits. And then the ratio is essentially how long the compression happens for. Now, if you're trying to make those vocal chops really blend in with the mix, something I always recommend is stereo shaping. You can hear these vocals sound very, very wide. But if I disable double or 4, so if you want to pick up this plugin, it's also going to be linked in the description with an affiliate link. I would appreciate it. Pretty much all this is doing is adding a version of this exact sound on the left and on the right. I disabled direct, which is just going to be the original sound in the middle. The higher you put the gain, the wider it's going to spread. Then I have a very high boost here, and I cut all the lows out, so it's not bogging with any of the bass or like melody sounds that are very mid-heavy. I also put on a compressor, but you don't always have to do this. It just depends on how your vocals sound. Okay, so now it's time for the big sauce. This master is probably the simplest it can possibly get. First thing we have is the kilohertz bit crush. This is also going to be linked in the description. It is completely free, which is awesome. In this case, I've just decided to put it onto the master instead of onto every individual layer. So I am kind of just cutting a corner a little bit. And now for the secret sauce, which is Ozone 11 Maximizer. This thing is an absolute cheat code, bro. You can make your shit sound so loud, so clean, and still it somehow has transients. I don't even get it. I pretty much always just click on presets and then click heavy soft clipping. I just crank this soft clipper and the gain, and that's gonna give it that really hard, punchy roof without it actually just completely destroying the kicks. I don't know what it's doing in the background, but it is insane. So let's turn this on and off, shall we? You can see it's analyzing literally all of the peaks here. Every time that kick comes in, it preserves that section, which is just chef's kiss. Now, the problem is if you're watching this on YouTube, it's gonna sound much, much quieter than it actually is. That's because pretty much every platform has some sort of compressing, limiting thing going on, and it sucks. But anyways, it's cool to look at. Let's push play.